Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Later on in the program, we'll look at, well, can we really sue over Tabor? Does the United States Constitution allow it? Well, we'll find out. Rob Nadelson will join me. But first, one of our favorite senators, Shawn Mitchell from Westminster area.
Broomfield, Adams County, Weld County.
And you got one more year.
One more year.
And you're out of there.
Been there 13 years. I think it's time to make a living and support my family. John, before we get started, I need to know, are you the devil or are you the advocate?
I am the advocate, but the devil made me do it.
Well, that's understandable.
You know, there's actually in the Catholic Church, not that you would know about this, there's a position called the devil's advocate that's supposed to, when there's a miracle being debated, was this a miracle? There's somebody who's supposed to be the devil's advocate and show that it wasn't a miracle.
I learned something today. Thank you.
You gonna become a Catholic now?
I'll look closer, but I'm pretty content where I am.
Well, I mean, it's a good equipment-intensive religion. I mean, you got the rosary beads, you got some other stuff. So
ritual, ordinances,
yeah, you can,
pomp and circumstance.
I can get you everything half price.
Thank you, John.
I wanted to talk to you about Xcel, our energy company here, and energy in Colorado in general. You had some great ideas in the state legislature, which were, of course, shot down immediately. And I've looked at Xcel over the years, and I'm convinced that Xcel has a lock hold on that state capital unlike any other corporate entity. In fact, I think that the legislature should just be renamed Xcel's bitch. Is that too far?
That's a little aggressive. I think we should call it the Xcel General Assembly on Capitol Hill.
So get a good official sponsorship.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, there were about 35 bills that Xcel was looking at, and every one that they wanted to died. Every one that they wanted it to pass, passed.
Xcel had tremendous clout, but they didn't do it alone. I think there are two or three forces pushing the direction we've been going for the last several years, and that direction has been a relentless assault on consumers and driving up the cost of energy. There's the extreme green lobby, there is the majority control, the Democrat control of the legislature, and there's Xcel Energy, and they've formed an unholy alliance to shove aside traditional affordable energy and to pursue more and more exotic mandates. And Colorado's energy prices are going up higher than any state in the country except perhaps Hawaii.
But we're only starting. I kind of feel like we're at that, you go on the roller coaster and you get that first bump on the chain and you're going, wait a second, we still have a long way to climb till we hit the peak. But let's talk about the way things used to be. It used to be that we had this Public Utilities Commission, and the Public Utilities Commission took care of the energy companies, because if there is an honest monopoly, energy companies really are the closest thing to it we have.
Right. There's no competition, so you have to have a utility regulator. The role of the Public Utilities Commission is to protect consumers, or at least that used to be their role until over the last several years. And one other player that I forgot to mention is Governor Ritter, who came touting his new energy economy that most people get a warm and fuzzy feeling about until they look at the numbers and realize what has happened to consumers. But between the governor and Xcel and the extreme green lobby and the majority Democrat control, we've done a number of things. We have turned the Public Utilities Commission from a consumer watchdog to just another environmental regulator.
Now, if any utility wants to do something with its rate structure, it has to go to the PUC.
That's right.
The PUC says, yes, you can, no, you can't, and there's a lot of fighting on that. And the PUC comes from the governor, right?
The appointments are by the governor, that's correct.
All right.
Now, but the law that the PUC enforces and the interests that they were established to protect are to provide the lowest cost energy possible to consumers. Of course, we have environmental laws, but there are state and federal environmental regulators that are supposed to be watching those laws. What the legislature did is...
In other words, we've got the EPA. We've got federal mandates. We've got state mandates.
State Health Department, Clean Air Commission.
When it comes to making sure that utilities don't pollute.
Exactly.
And so that you're saying that's covered. That's not what the PUC is there for, right?
That's right. Well, it's not what they used to be there for, but the legislature in its wisdom has said that's what they should do now. They should do green planning. They should set regulations based on what the EPA might impose next year or next decade. They have become a freelance environmental regulator without any firm guiding principle to approve whatever exotic proposals Xcel Energy wants to make.
We have almost a carbon tax now in state from the PUC.
Yes.
And the PUC used to have something called a least cost principle. Is that what they called it?
Right.
What was it? What did it do? And what happened to it? I like that thought.
Least cost planning was for the utility to get their plan approved, they had to show that while they were complying with all the other laws, they were providing energy to consumers at the lowest cost available. That's not the guiding principle anymore. It's now green planning.
So in other words, if Xcel would come up and say, we've got this great idea for an energy plant, what we're going to do is hire 5,000 guys to pedal on bicycles. It's going to cost 50 times more, but it's going to be cool and everybody will get exercise. The PUC say, you can't do that. No, that's not least cost.
Historically, they would have said no way. Now they actually have the discretion and are moving in the direction of approving those kinds of exotic schemes.
All right. There was a bill in the legislature to get it back to the way it was, that ratepayers come
That's
first.
Right.
And now with a Republican House, that of course made it through the Republican House all the way to the Democratic Senate, where better minds won out, and now it's laying at the desk of Governor Hickenlooper.
Unfortunately, no. Actually, there may have been a bill coming from the House, but there was also one that started in the Senate. Scott Renfro from Weld County had a bill that said, let's put the PUC back in the business of protecting consumers. President of the Senate, Brandon Schaefer, sent that not to the Business Affairs Committee or to local government. He sent it to State Affairs, which is the famous liberal kill committee for anything right of center.
Now, each house, the leadership has a kill committee.
That's right.
So in this case, the president, Schaefer, when he doesn't want something, it goes to that committee.
That's right.
Where it's just destroyed. McNulty, the Speaker of the House, has a similar committee. I forget which one it is.
Conservative, yeah. And State Affairs also.
State Affairs, all right. So even the idea of addressing the issue of cost when it comes to ratepayers doesn't matter.
That bill never saw the light of day. It didn't get to the Senate floor. We didn't get to debate it or vote on it. It was killed in Senate State Affairs. There were a couple other bills in the Senate that would have also pushed back in favor of consumers. I had a bill to take you recall Amendment 37. A few years ago, Colorado voters said renewable energy is a good thing. We want 10% of our electricity to come from renewable energy. That was progressive. That was enlightened, and
I wouldn't call it enlightened.
Okay. That was a moderate step.
So we said we're going to have 10%, and it came. I think it came through the legislature, put on the ballot.
That's right.
We, the people, approved that, and we said we want this. Interestingly, renewable energy didn't include hydroelectric or nuclear energy.
No,
so it was all propeller power or solar power.
All about wind and solar.
Right, so 10%, and they said it's not going to cost you much more at all.
They made false promises that it wouldn't raise costs, and of course it will. But it wasn't enough for the extreme green lobby or for the new majority Democrats. After they took over a few years, they tripled that 10% to 30%. So now, even though Colorado voters approved a 10% renewable component, or RPS it's called, Renewable Portfolio Standard, the majority in the legislature has made it 30%. And I had a bill to roll that back.
Back to what the voters to what the voters approved.
Yeah.
And that, of course, was not sent to State Affairs. It actually got out of the Senate, through the House, and is now waiting on the governor's desk.
You live in a happy world, John. In the real world, my bill was lined up against the wall. I was given a blindfold and a cigarette, and the committee shot.
Actually, no more cigarettes. It's probably one of those vapor inhaler fake ones these days.
Electronic.
So in other words, the idea of having a least cost principle was out the window, and
right.
Xcel didn't support that bill, I'm assuming.
No, of course not.
Your bill, which would say, let's bring it back to 10% feel-good energy mandate instead of this unreachable, I believe, or close to unreachable, but very, very expensive, 30%. Xcel didn't like that.
That's right.
That didn't see the light of day. Xcel did like something, a fuel switching bill. Now, traditionally, nearly 80% of our electricity comes from old, reliable coal. It's kind of like the Toyota you have in your driveway. It's not pretty, but let me tell you, it's just there, and it keeps on going. And there was a bill to, again, from the Republican House, to say, we're going to switch it. We're going to put natural gas in, even if it costs more.
Right. It actually started last year with House Bill 1365, which put politicians in the business of deciding what our fuel source should be. No more coal, as you point out. We're going to push towards natural gas. I think Colorado is richly endowed with natural gas. It's becoming more affordable and available, but it should win a fair competition. Politicians shouldn't be guessing and deciding and forcing that. This year, we went even further with a bill. It's called the State Implementation Plan. That plan, what states do is enforce federal environmental laws, and the SIP, or State Implementation Plan, is we say, EPA, this is how we're going to follow your principles here in Colorado. This is how we're going to keep the environment clean. After 1365, we are far more stringent, far cleaner, far more expensive than even what federal law demands.
So above and beyond what the
right.
feds require, and still the legislature passed something to make fuel more expensive and forcing companies to do this. Now,
Yeah.
let me just ask you the basic question. You're a very talented lawyer. You got a great deal of knowledge and experience in that. How many utility companies have you run? I mean, how many have you actually worked for? I know that the legislature doesn't get involved that much in how most manufacturing happens. They have safety regulations and environmental regulations, but they don't tell the shoemaker how to make his shoes. What's with you guys? How is it that you know how companies should make electricity?
John, you ask a pointed question. I'm embarrassed to tell you I've never run a utility company, which is why I don't think we should be pushing this direction at the behest of the utility company. And it has real-world consequences. Colorado rates, consumer rates have gone up about 10%. In the next few years, it's projected they'll go up 10% more, or 20% increase in this new energy economy. We're not going to make people better off by making them pay more for energy, and that's what we're doing. And it's a disgrace.
But the idea that the legislature now will control how something is manufactured. I don't care if Xcel or any of the utility companies, I know there's the rural electric associations and others, I don't care if they use propellers, I don't care if they take bunny flatulence, light it on fire and make steam. I don't care as long as they make those decisions in a marketplace that gives us the best low cost. Now the legislature is deciding how to do it. Why does Xcel love this so much?
Well, the dirty little secret is that, number one, Xcel doesn't care how much it costs because they pass all their costs through to the consumers. Number two, they actually make more money on building new plants than on operating their existing plants. So anything that causes them to have to change sources of energy and build new plants is more profit for Xcel shareholders. The Denver Post recently reported that Xcel has sprung from a tough economic stretch to a very profitable company, and most of those profits are coming from Colorado, where the new energy economy is a gold mine for Xcel.
Let me echo that, because that is just amazing. Xcel is a multi-state company.
That's
it
right.
provides power for many, many states. But its biggest profit center by far per capita is
right
here in Colorado, thanks to these.
Thanks to the legislature,
mandates.
thanks to Bill Ritter, and thanks to the PUC that is running aggressively with the agenda that we gave them.
Just a little bit left. Let me ask you about working people, because I know that environmentalists care a lot about working people. Who gets screwed in the end? I'm not talking now, I'm talking 5 years, 10 years, when we're supposed to meet these mandates that I think are hard to meet.
Well, first, ratepayers. Anyone that wants to hit a switch and have air conditioning or have a hot shower or turn on the lights, they're paying 10% more already. You know, we had a big bloody debate and feud in the legislature this session over whether or not Colorado could afford to add 30 cents to the cost of a federal school meal. And here we have this legislature that thought it was immoral that kids might have to do a 30% copay. They're jacking up utility rates like there's no tomorrow.
Senator Mitchell, thank you. And next time, win this fight, will you? Because the kids keep turning on the heat. Stay tuned. We'll be taking a look at Tabor and a lawsuit against it.